Alrighty guys, we're back for Dimir Graveyard, and this is a Bloomburrow standard brew, and I'm Red Cat. Let's briefly go over the deck, then hop right into some ranked, but first things first, this is a patron suggestion, so thank you so much for the suggestion. It's gonna be a fun one. We have a whole bunch of graveyard strategies packed in, like this top end here, Hollow Marauder. This is a 7 mana, 4/2 with flying. Now it costs one less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. So how many creatures do we have packed in? We have 26 creatures. Hopefully that's enough to go ahead and get this Marauder really cheap. So when this enters, any number of target opponents each discard a card. For each of those opponents who didn't discard a card with mana value 4 or greater, draw a card. That's actually a pretty good ability, huh? So we'll see how often we actually pull off a cheap Marauder, but we actually have some other cheap creatures in here that could potentially be a pretty powerful, like Cruel Somnophage here. This is a 2 mana, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards, including your opponents. Cool. Now, it has an adventure side, can't wake up for 1 in the blue, target player mills 4 cards. Now, you're going to be milling yourself way more often than not, so yeah, and that should be pretty good. A way to stock up our grave early on is going to be huge. We have 4 Souls of the Lost here too. This is a 2 mana, and Souls of the Lost power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number plus 1. So not just creatures for this one, it's just permanent cards. Cool, and lands are permanents too. How many lands do we actually have packed in? We have 24 lands in here, and then 26 creatures, and other permanents are planeswalkers, and we also have a battle in here too. The Planeswalkers is a couple Lilianas that can actually help us keep our graveyard nice and stocked with the discard ability, but then it also acts as some removal for the -2. Of course, you guys know Liliana, very powerful Planeswalker. Other removal that we have packed in is like a Bitter Triumph. Again, the discard can actually help us stock up the graveyard with very specific things, maybe discard a creature to make the Marauder a little cheaper, right? But also just very powerful removal in general. Same concept with a Cut Down. Powerful removal in general, huh? I have some counter spells packed in with 3 steps ahead, which will actually work really nicely when it comes time to copy some of our stuff too, right? So for the spree cost, the additional spree cost of +3, you can create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control. And when you copy some of our creatures, we got these ETB abilities, like the Hollow Marauder, for example. That just sounds really good. But we actually have other ETBs packed in, like Tidecaller Mentor here. This is a 3 mana, 3/3, rocking those Dimir colors up there. It does have Menace, which is pretty good, and it has Threshold. So when Tidecaller Mentor enters, if 7 or more cards are in your graveyard, this time it doesn't have to be permanents or creatures, it's just cards. Return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, which actually could be a really interesting tempo play as you get a 3/3 menace on the board, and then you bounce a non-land permanent, which could be really, really good actually. And again, not a bad target to copy with that 3 steps ahead. Now 3 steps ahead being one of the counter spells, we actually have another counter spell, Ertai Resurrected, making the cut. 4 mana, 3/2 with flash, and when it enters, you choose up to 1. So, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller draws a card. Or destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. Okay. It's actually a really good creature that we just don't get to see too much of anymore, which is a little bit surprising. Oh, other ETB abilities that we really wouldn't mind copying with like 3 steps ahead, right? Is actually this Chupacabra Echo. This is a 4 mana, 3/2. And when it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard, which at that point is hopefully enough to take care of whatever creature we're targeting with the Echo. Actually, I think this is going to be really, really good in here. We do have other self-mill strategies packed in, like Gnawing Vermin. When it enters, target player mills 2 cards. Again, more often than not, you're going to be milling yourself. Then also when this dies, target creature you control gets -1/-1 until end of turn, which is actually a pretty good ability. So I have the Ancient one packed in. Hopefully that'll do the thing. It has that Descend 8, where it can't attack or block unless there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. Other than that, it's a 2 mana 8/8 with a bottom ability too, which could be pretty sick. Some other interesting cards packed in. We have Invasion of Amonkhet making the cut as a one-of. We'll see if that does the thing today. And then also No One Left Behind. This is an interesting one, guys. As I've been overlooking this card since it came out. 5 mana sorcery. Now, it costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature card with mana value 3 or less. So 3 less to cast would mean it's 1 and a black. A return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if it's not 2 mana, grab like a 3-drop, then it's 5 mana, grab whatever you want, which actually isn't bad, especially if you sent like a Marauder to the grave, because the ETB on the Marauder is actually pretty good and a way to keep our hand nice and stocked. Outside of that, keeping our hand nice and stocked might be pretty hard in here. Like 3 steps ahead is a little bit of card draw too, I suppose. Okay, guys, in the mana base, this is kind of important. We have all 4 Fabled Passage, just more ways to get permanent cards into the graveyard as you sacrifice this to find your basics. Similar concept with Demolition Field, but also just Demolition Field helping us pick up like Restless lands and other lands that might be helping the opponent out. Opting for the Undercity Sewers because of the Surveil. We do have a Restless Reef packed in here as well as a couple Darkslick Shores too. Honorable mentions, guys. We got a lot, actually. Rona's Vortex almost made the cut. Definitely something to consider. Long River's Pool was in the original suggested deck list, and actually considered Negate as well. So Rona, Herald of Invasion is something I thought about. And then your choice spot removal. Looks like I have Go for the Throat, Shoot the Sheriff over here. There's so much spot removal to choose from. Choose whichever one makes you happy. Whatever like you're going up against, right? Go for that instead. Like, just remember though, Bitter Triumph does work well with the theme in here because of that discard, but sometimes you won't have the discard, or sometimes you won't be able to pay the 3 life on the Bitter Triumph. So yeah, honorable mentions for a reason. Hadi Djinn was actually in the original deck list too. Actually just opted for a more of a creature strategy rather than an instant and sorcery strategy. Deadly Cover-Up is something to consider. And then the Husk Burster Swarm is something to consider as well. I think for this deck list in particular, the Hollow Marauder is going to be much, much better. Okay, guys. I do my dandiest to save the more in-depth discussion for the end of the video, and sometimes I fail. Either way, let's go ahead, take this into some ranked and see how we do. Okay, guys, we'll see if we can get right into that first game. In the meantime, what am I expecting from the deck list? I don't know. I'm actually expecting a little bit. We have some really sick synergies in here, dude. We'll see. It really depends like how much the opponents plan on poking around our graveyard. You know what I mean? Like if we can keep our graveyard around, it also depends like how fast the opponents go too, because there is a super aggressive deck list where you only get a couple turns sometimes, which like right here, opponent goes first. That's pretty scary, man. So we're going to keep this. I see no reason not to. We got that turn 1 Vermin and then the Mill, which is pretty good. Could also opt for turn 2 Vermin if we want to go a couple turns in a row of Sewers, but I'm not going to since we saw a Swamp. Oh, wow. Just sending some land to the grave. At least it's permanent, so it works with like our Echo. All right. Orzhov colors from the opponents. They're checking out our Vermin. They go Deep Cavern Bat, probably take the Bitter Triumph here, but that's a tough decision. Echo wouldn't be terrible, but that's much later down the line. 3 turns from now. It's going to be that Bitter Triumph. All right. Well, Bitter Triumph out of hand means we might as well go Sewers. Get that Surveil. Invasion. I'm going to keep that. That's a really good turn 3. Might as well cheese 1 damage through, right? Because they're not going to block with that bat, for sure. And they're going to swing with the bat, too, to get that 1 back, so... Yeah, Invasion of Amonkhet is a great top deck here. Honestly, might be worth more than one of those. But it depends. It's like I said, sometimes you see like those super aggressive deck lists, and then your turn 3 is an Invasion of Amonkhet, and you're kind of feeling a little sad about that. But we're not sad about it right now against this deck list by any means. So let's get that down. See what we mill. We draw a card, they discard a card. Like, all that's, like, really huge, man. Did we just... We got even more land in the grave, guys. Holy cow. That's a lot of mana on the top here. That's great, though, because now we're not going to be drawing into it. But, of course, we definitely wanted to see more creatures hitting the grave because we have Marauder in hand. Vermin not getting around the Preacher easily. We'd much rather, like, just save it for a late-game chump blocker. Maybe we'll chump like a swinging something, like Shieldred or something, right? Shieldred doesn't have to swing, though. Most of the time, the opponents just sit on Shieldred. Let Shieldred relax, go on vacation while she slowly wins the game. You know what? I always bring up Shieldred, but, like, I feel like I just haven't been seeing as much recently. What about you guys? Let me know in the comments. Where has Shieldred been? Is it too late in the game because there's just, like, too much super fast mono red floating about? Honestly, I guess you never know. But nah, Shieldred's, like, too good to even consider that too late in the game, right? Yeah, I'll keep the Gnawing Vermin for something. And I don't think it's worth the chump on the Preacher of the Schism yet. Pass it back. Fable, honestly, dude, we should probably thin the deck before anything else. I wouldn't mind the Surveil on the Sewers too, but it's probably going to be Echo for the turn to pick up the Preacher of the Schism too. Yeah. Fabled Passage. Let's thin the deck list and we'll grab a blue source. That way we'll have double blue outside of the Sewers if we see something that needs that. And then Echo comes down. We could start with the swing. I'm going to start chipping away at this Invasion of Amonkhet. How you guys feel about that? I think that's fine. Let's take out that Preacher of the Schism because it does provide a lot of value. Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. So starting to chip away at the Invasion, like our 3-2 Echo and stuff, it is going to be picked up by a Go for the Throat, but like that's definitely like important. Like if it was a 4-2 Echo, then maybe it would have been worth just keeping the Vermin as an emergency, like chump blocker again. So we will have the 5 for the Marauder. I think it would be worth going Vermin though, milling 2 and maybe hitting a creature and seeing what happens. Aclizotes is a problem, dude. Luckily we have a great blocker in the air, but outside of that, that's going to be tough. That's going to be a really tough creature to deal with. Getting through that to get to the Invasion too, to like copy the Echo, and then they can just consistently bring back Aclizotes. Could also go for the mill on the Sewers. I think we're going to start with the Vermin, mill ourselves for 2. I think we can get that Marauder because we hit so much land already. There we go. There's some creatures. All right. Marauder's now 3. So we could go. We can successfully go Sewers now. Surveil. 3 steps ahead. Oh, man, that would have been really good to counter like Aclizotes when it came time. We were tapped out anyways, but I'm going to keep this, dude. Because there's a chance that Marauder sticks around on the board. It's a great copy. And honestly, Souls of the Lost is a great copy too. See what they discard here? Maybe we'll draw that 3 steps ahead this turn. We sure do. Not bad. Really isn't. So if we swing with the Vermin, see if Vermin dies, we can pop the bat. That's pretty good to get the Bitter Triumph, but the Bitter Triumph taking care of the Aclizotes isn't that great. They gain 4, that's not great. I'm just gonna wait. I think our Vermins will still do the job when it comes time. I think keeping the bat around this long might have been a mistake. Just for a chance at a better chump with the Vermin. So, whenever we discard a land, they create a bat. But I like everything else in my hand, so you get a bat. There you go, buddy. Yeah, I don't want to lose anything else in my hand right now. Oh, it is going to be spot removal for the Marauder, unfortunately, guys. Crap, down to 10. I thought we were about to get a pretty good block there. Okay, we do have 2 getting through to the Amonkhet if we want. Dust Animus from the opponent. Holy cow. Looks like Orzhov value over here, right? We haven't seen too much else other than just like good cards, and we barely get to see the Dust Animus, but that's going to be a problem, dude. For real. Maybe we keep 3 steps ahead for a counter. Oh, Liliana's not bad. Kind of, sort of. Yeah, I'm going to keep Liliana. All right, here we go. Let's get the Deep Cavern Bat off this board. Souls of the Lost. We're going to sacrifice a permanent. Hold up. Hold up. Should I swing first? I should swing first. We'll swing at the invasion. Get it down as far as possible. Wow, they actually go for the trade. Huh. Because we're taking out the bat too. So we're getting the Bitter Triumph to hand. Okay, I think we stick to it. And I think we still pop the Vermin over the discard, right? Sacrifice a permanent. We could also sacrifice the Invasion of Amonkhet. Or a land. That's probably not a good idea, right? Okay, it's the Vermin. It's the Vermin. The unfortunately, yeah, like the -1 ability isn't doing anything. Liliana's on top. Tough decisions for sure, but we still have 3 steps ahead for the counter spell now. If we don't want to counter the Dust Animus, then I suppose we could go for the card draw. And we also have like Bitter Triumph open too if we just want to pop the Aclizotes for the turn. Because our 13-14 Souls of the Lost is kind of no joke. I'm not really sure how I want to do that. Actually, if we would have... Yeah, we can't copy Souls of the Lost. That's 4 mana. That would have been pretty good too, though. Swing with the Aclizotes. So we can pop the Aclizotes. Oh, the discard guys. I really shouldn't have let them swing. Oh, crap. That's not good. I should have popped the Aclizotes, man. I should have, but then the Dust Animus was going to come down. I don't know. I don't know, guys. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we shouldn't have let the Aclizotes swing. I always forget about the discard, even though it literally just happened. Yeah, we should probably just go for the counter spell at this point, right? I think so. Tough decisions. I am completely fizzling out over here. With Liliana coming down next turn, though, we have the sacrifice on the Aclizotes, which might be good enough for now. We could also consider, instead of 13 swing at the invasion, or instead of 13 swing at face, we could swing at the invasion, bring back a creature like the Marauder or something, right? We would draw a card off of that too. I think we're just going to swing face though. And I hope that's okay. Oh, they have the Restless Fortress if they want to sacrifice that. I don't think they would want to do that, though. They have the Restless Fortress to block if they want to do that. Restless Fortress to swing at the Liliana at that point, too. Let's see what they do with this sacrifice a creature. I apologize, opponent. There's like, we have like 2 cards and 1,000 options for some reason. Are they going to take this Restless Fortress sacrifice, guys? This would be pretty huge for us. All right, we change our lines. We swing at the invasion and we pop the Aclizotes that way with a Chupacabra, right? Right? Because Aclizotes will come back tapped, so we have the next turn. We can also, first of all, we play the Convert. They have a Sheoldred in the grave. That could be pretty good. I want this Aclizotes off the board, though. So it's going to have to be the Echo, I would say. Yeah, based on like their sacrifice with the Fortress, that changed our line. Get the Echo back. Comes back as a land, but when they transform it, it comes back tapped. So we like have that extra turn to build up the Liliana maybe. And then instead of them swinging at our face, they might just swing at the Liliana. Yeah, really tough decisions, dude. I don't know if I'm playing this out well at all, honestly. They still have 2 mana open. If it's removal, that would be really good for them. Cruel Somnophage. Wow. Okay. Let's do it. We start with that. We want to get it out of our hand before we go plus on the Liliana. And we do plus on the Liliana before the swing, too. All right. Plus. See what's left in their hand. It's going to be a Doorkeeper Thrall. They found a blocker, dude. That's huge for them. Artifacts and creatures entering don't cause abilities to trigger. All right, well, Liliana's not going to survive next turn, but we might, so that's good. Full swing. They chump the 17-18 Souls of the Lost. Hopefully they don't find more chump blockers next turn, but honestly, the chump blocker is better for us than generic spot removal, right? Oh, they take it, guys. Are we in danger? Question mark. They have 5 on the board. I guess they might have something in the build that could help them get that last point of damage through. The sacrifice on the Restless Fortress earlier was pretty greedy then, right? Because technically, if it would have just been the sacrifice on the Aclizotes, they could have potentially had the Restless Fortress to still swing through. We're going to go 1 at the Liliana to make sure we don't have the -2. They get the draw on the Aclizotes, so anyone's game, dude. They're back up to 13. 2 cards in hand, they could easily... One's a Fabled Passage. I wonder what the last card in the opponent's hand is, guys. Is it something that could save them? Zoraline. So it's just 1 blocker for one of these, huh? All right. We just full swing then. They drop the oops. They can chump block the 17, but they're still taking 18 damage here. 3 steps ahead was actually a really good draw too, because if it was something else and they waited for our turn, like if it was spot removal and they actually waited for us to swing, they played the spot removal, we actually would have had the counter spell there too then. Wow, 15-minute game. My brain was melting somewhere in there. That was good stuff, man. Orzhov, like, value or something. I was trying to riddle out what the opponent was playing. There's just like a lot of really good cards. I actually really like Dust Animus, guys. It's one that I don't think I've actually visited yet, but like when I see it, it's cool. And I feel like it can often... so look, if you control 5 or more untapped lands, it enters with 2+1/+1 counters and a lifelink counter as well. I just feel like, I don't know, man. I look at that and I see value, but we also don't see it getting played too often. And then the Zoraline in here. So bat you control attacks. I can imagine then that they had other bats packed in. Oh yeah, they did. Of course they did. Deep Cavern Bat and the Aclizotes. Interesting. I wonder if they had even more bats packed in that too. I don't know. Yeah, that was good though. The really good showcase of the deck list. I'm very happy with that match. I probably could have played it out better, but I don't know. Maybe we did fine. All right. What you bringing to the table, opponent? Also, guys, while I have you here in the middle of the video, make sure you check out that description where we got that a Discord link as well as that Patreon link too if you're interested in supporting the channel that way. Then also, if you like the video, drop it a like. And if you like the channel, consider subscribing because it really does help out the channel. So thank you, guys. Opponent goes first. This is a fine enough hand. We'll be able to find blue on the Fabled Passage. Milling on the Vermin. Hopefully we draw our 3rd right away. I think this might actually be a mulligan because of the double blue on the 3 steps ahead, but we can use these as card draw too, is the thing. We'll see what happens here. We'll see what we accidentally mill into the grave. Well, there's one untapped source, but at least we got the Vermin in there too. Another Fabled Passage. Not terrible. I'll go for the swing. And we have to prioritize blue first. Right? Maybe? Yeah, probably. Probably prioritize blue first. That's tough because of the Liliana, but I guess it would have depended what they ended up playing here. Because if we end up seeing like an untapped source off the top is what I'm getting at. Right, then what do we want to play on turn 3? Okay, Souls of the Lost. It's an option for the turn. If we discard the Vermin, it's actually not bad, but Souls of the Lost getting countered is actually terrible. So we probably don't want to do that. So we'll start with the Fabled Passage, start with the swing on the Vermin, and see what they do. Yeah, Fabled Passage not being the best mana fixing when we need like double blue on a counterspell and double black on our Planeswalker, but yeah, we're just going to awkwardly play Vermin and see what we end up milling. Because I don't want the Souls of the Lost. I don't want to sacrifice or discard a card. Ooh, nice. More creatures hitting the grave. Not bad. Yeah, I don't want to lose extra on a counterspell. 4 mana, pass it back. Yep, they are too. Okay. Alright, yeah. Definitely a counterspell, but what do we want to be countered? They're going to grab the black source. The deck list is majority black, but I think that having... Yeah, yeah, that's fine. So we do find the other swamp off the top, but honestly, yeah, if we would have... Like, there's no guarantee that that was going to happen. Really tough to decide when that Souls of the Lost is going to be worthwhile. Because just like keeping 3 steps ahead could be fine too. As a card draw at this point, right? And plugging more into the grave too. Get a couple through. I'll sacrifice a Vermin instead of like discarding. Let's attempt the Souls of the Lost, because I suppose you never know, right? We could also discard one of the 3 steps ahead, but I have a feeling these are going to come in handy. So let's just sacrifice a Vermin and be happy about it. Let's see what happens here. That also gets more cards into the grave too, so the Mentor's ability is ready. If we need that. Souls of the Last Landing, so some generic spot removal is likely. It's going to be Get Lost, which actually isn't bad for us, but they waited till the end so we can't pop the map tokens with our 2 open mana. Mightstone, Weakstone, probably drawing 2. No threat on the board right now that's worthwhile. And then the Mycosynth Garden's probably going to be an issue. Down isn't terrible. A Tidecaller bouncing the Mightstone, Weakstone is not great, but it is an option. It's just the ETB on this is a little bit too strong. We could start like the discard going with the Liliana. Let's see what we see on the top. Off a map token. We'll start there, and we might just keep 3 open to draw on the 3 steps ahead. It's going to be a swamp. I think we're going to go map token again. So see, grabbing a blue on the other Fable. Chupacabra Echo. How good is that against the current deck list? Not great, but it might help us take out some chunky artifacts when it comes time. I'm going to send it. Tidecaller also helps us take care of like token artifacts and stuff. And so does Liliana technically. Alright, swing for 2. And 3 steps ahead is open for card draw. And that's it. Yeah, it's just the bottom spree ability. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Which is not half bad. We're plugging a whole bunch into the grave very effectively. The Inner Sun. Boy, that counterspell would really come in handy right about now, huh? Spells you control can't be counted. Now we're going to see that blue source off the top, right? I bet any money. Okay, Market Gnome coming down too. Wow. So we got some Azorius artifacts, which actually looks pretty menacing. So this might come down. Oh, no blue source, actually. Okay. So Bitter Triumph isn't that great here right now. I'm going to actually send the Triumph. And hopefully I don't end up regretting that. Discover 5. It's going to be Spring-Loaded Saw Blades. That takes care of the Vermin. Vermin is a tapped creature. You can go -1 on the Gnome. That doesn't do much. Fabled Passage. There we go. We found our second blue source. But guess what, guys? Spells can't be countered now, so... That's rough, actually. So we are going to start with the Fabled Passage because that thins the deck. Plugs even more into the grave. Invasion of Amonkhet is probably the play here. Wait a minute. Oh, if we had triple blue on the board, Mentor bounce the Inner Sun, then have the counter open. That's still an option, guys. It is. We just have to wait a couple turns, so they're still going to get a lot of value out of this Inner Sun. See what happens with this Invasion of Amonkhet. See what we draw here. It's going to be a swamp, actually. So... Liliana? Draw on 3 steps ahead? No. We see another blue source. It's probably going to be a tapped blue source. Like the Undercity Sewers or something, right? We'll get the Liliana down. Like, the -2 right now isn't, like, terrific, but at least we're establishing a Planeswalker onto the board. Yeah, it's not great, but it's better than keeping 3 steps ahead for card draw when especially I just want to counter. More blue sources this game really would have helped out. Or I should say dual lands. So that's something to consider when we go over this deck list at the end, right? Like, this is just a lot of basics on the board, really holding up a lot of our plays. Spring-loaded Saw Blades, that's a vehicle now, and it doesn't have haste, right? It does not. Yeah, another Market Gnome, and the... did they discover? What did they discover? Oh, spring-loaded Saw Blades. Okay. Okay. Removal just, like, not helping us right now, though. The discard... Probably going to be the Swamp. Right, we're going to plus the Liliana. At some point, this Tidecaller has to come down. I'd love to bounce that Inner Sun so bad, but we need one more blue source on this board. So we'll start with the discard, see what they end up discarding. It might literally just be the spring-loaded Saw Blades. I don't think we need this Swamp right now. It's awkward. We could also return the Invasion, play the Invasion again, see what we draw. You know what? I like that better. Like, we're in danger, dude. We're in a lot of danger with what they've established. There's no guarantee that we're actually gonna see another blue source to actually pull off the Mentor and the 3 steps ahead all in the same turn. Especially if we do that too, they might have enough mana at that point. Especially with the Mightstone, Weakstone ramp. So, yeah. It's a weird play. But I'm going to bounce the Invasion and try to just get more value out of this. As they continue, like, we draw, they discard. That's actually pretty brutal. We're milling more into the grave, too, which we don't mind getting more into the grave. It's going to be they're going to discard their spring-loaded Saw Blades. And we see... a 1-mana Hollow Marauder. That's what I'm talking about, dude. The No One Left Behind got milled, though. That kind of sucks. And we still have 3 more Hollowed Marauders. Glyph Bridge. Wow. They just play that for fun. Like, they get rid of our Mentor. But the Mentor wasn't doing too much. Oh, they want to take out the Liliana. I see. They didn't want us to have a chump blocker. And they must not have other spot removal in hand. Yeah, that makes sense. Synthesizer is finally on the opponent's board. That is scary. I'm surprised they didn't go Synthesizer first and then played the Unstable Glyph Bridge. Or was there an order to things there that I'm missing right now? Ertai. Just like start with the Hollow Marauder, see what happens. Actually just like really good. Target opponents. A great ability, man. I feel like it's a really high chance to draw off of the Marauder. We still have 5 mana available too. And the double blue, but again, we can't counter anything, so... A lot of removal. Another Inner Sun. And they're going to go ahead and keep the Assimilation Aegis here in hand. That'll pick up the Marauder when it comes time. Wonder if, like, they try to pick up the Marauder and we go Resurrected onto our own Marauder just to draw a card. Get a bit of a tempo play there. Might be okay. I'm tempted by, like, the cut down on the gnome, too. But, yeah, never mind. That's not worth it. That's not worth it, because they can still craft it from the grave anyways. It might be this Ertai Resurrected, since we can't hit a counter spell anyways, right? Okay. So, Synthesizer, they get a 9/9, and we just try for an interesting tempo play and see what happens. Oh, Auto Tapper kept a blue source, so now we don't have the cut down open. I don't think that'll matter too much, but okay. Destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. That's silly. Tidecaller Mentor. Okay. Okay. I don't know how we get through here, man. We're 36 minutes in. I'd love to get another game in. Oh, that's bad news. Another Mightstone Weakstone means another huge construct. You know what else we could have done, guys? I kind of missed this too. I don't know if this would have mattered though. We could have copied the Marauder, got that ability again. That would have been pretty good, right? 3 steps ahead, copy the Marauder. Drawn that way, kept a 4/2 in the air. The 4/2 could have swung at the Invasion. But I'm pretty sure we're going to die. The Synthesizer's popping off right now. The Chariot's on the board too, so... They discover another 5 for the Inner Sun. Yeah, the mana definitely held us up this game. Something to talk about in the final thoughts, where we're not playing as many dual lands as maybe we should be, but also Fabled Passage just works so well with what we're doing with the grave. So, 3rd island, finally hitting the table. We can get the Mentor down, which means we can bounce something that we want to counter, but we can't counter anything else while the Inner Sun is on the board. So we bounce the Inner Sun, and then we have the counterspell, but the opponent has us on the full swing because that'll take 3 mana. We have a cut down for a gnome, not a 12/12. And we can block a couple of them, but I'm pretty sure we're about to die. So let's see what they end up doing here. Oh, they also have a Restless Anchorage too. Oh, and they can also tap down our creatures with the braided net. There's just like so much going on the opponent's board. That's really hard to keep track of all that. They can tap the other one down too and get that nice full swing. They don't even have to play anything out then. They do go for the Synthesizer though. We'll let that land. Boost, boost. Come on, before the swing opponent, play the Inner Sun so I can have this counter spell. Come on. Yeah, let's do it. It's so worth it. That's why we stuck around this game, huh? We managed to pull off the counter on the Inner Sun. And then we'll go for the cut down on the Market Gnome as well. Yeah, opponent really popping off here with their actually late game Synthesizer. Drop the GGs as well. I don't know if there would have been a lot of great ways through. I think that the mana was a little too punishing that game. Even if we had seen the correct mana, though, would it have been easier? I honestly don't think so. I think that would have started leaning towards the opponent pretty effectively, just based on what they were seeing too, the double Mightstone Weakstone. If we would have started to establish bigger creatures, I think that they would have been able to get that. Still, though, I think we're showcasing our deck list beautifully. We're about 40 minutes in. We're getting late into the video. But I definitely want to get one more game in, and I do actually believe we can end on a high note, but if we don't end on a high note, that's fine too. I'm really actually quite satisfied with how the deck list has been playing. Huh. This might be the best hand of the evening, guys. Like, we actually have a quite successful curve. We're starting with a lot of self-mill here. Opponent just dropping a tapped land. Go for the swing. More self-mill. This is sorcery speed, so you want to do it now. Very nice. Very nice. Hit a lot of creatures there for the Somnophage and everything. We want to go Undercity Sewers, so we'll have the 4th untapped for 4. Honestly, against Selesnya, it's probably going to have to be Echo on 4 anyways. Alright, we'll start with the Surveil, see what we see. Tidecaller Mentor is probably worth keeping on top. Let's see if they go for the trade here. They do not accept that trade. Probably the Somnophage over the Souls. Souls could discard Sewers. It's a little bit heftier. That's probably a little better then, right? Discard the Undercity Sewers. Keep the 4th for 4 for the Echo. And that's a 6-7. And that's a very early 6-7. So that's probably a little bit better than the Somnophage. Even though I probably... Well, guys, we could have popped the Vermin. Popped the Recruit. That would have been pretty good, right? I think it's still acceptable to go for the discard, though. Because Vermin could prove itself to be a worthwhile chump blocker when it comes time, too. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. Let's see here. So 4th is going to come down. Tidecaller Mentor's great tempo, but it's probably just Echo for the turn. Echo, they will get a counter. We want to pop the Ace Archer. They get a counter on the Recruit. But we have a really good full swing here, actually. We'll go for it. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay. They do end up taking it, but whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than that creature. Okay, I got scared there for a second because they were like looking at that Vermin. Yeah. The counter goes onto another creature. So if we would have went like -1, that wouldn't have worked out for them. All right, Mentor's a great tempo play. Fabled Passage is actually really good here. We will just go ahead and grab a Swamp, even though that did not work out for us in the last game. It should be completely fine here as the deck is heavily leaning towards those black sources. We're going to tempo the Quest Caller. They get a counter on the Recruit. We go tempo the Recruit. They could have the Offspring for next turn. GG opponent. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that is pretty brutal, right? That's what I'm talking about, man. That is exactly what the deck list is trying to do. That actually felt pretty aggressive when we saw our early 2-drops, right? So, really fun game. That was awesome. And it was fast, too, which was important because we were getting pretty late into the video. So anyways, I'm pretty sure the tempo is going to be on the Quest Caller. We don't want to bounce the Recruit. They find their 3rd, and then they have the Offspring for more chump blockers, right? We bounce this, and then the Recruit goes up to the 4/3 that it is right now because it gets the +1/+1 from the Quest Caller is gone, but they get the +1/+1 from the +1 counter, if that makes sense, right? So it'd still be a 4/3 with the extra counter. But anyways, we'd still have a swing with the Echo and the Lost and the Vermin probably too, because if they ended up blocking the Vermin, then they would have let 10 go through, which would have been way too much getting through. And then we still had the Somnophage play for the turn. That's wild, man. It's really good, actually. 44 minutes into the video, guys. we're going to go ahead and call it there on a beautiful high note. That was just like a really good game. Holy cow. So, Dimir Graveyard. It was a patron suggestion. Thank you again for the suggestion. It was definitely a fun one. This was awesome. It was really fun. Hollow Marauder. I thought we were going to see this a little more today, but when we did see it, it was pretty darn good. We saw it in that one game for just 1 mana. Now, the longer the game goes, of course, it gets much cheaper. And then the goal here, of course, then too, is you draw into just more to play on that same turn. So at that point in the game, you're like, well, you already have 6 mana. Why does it need to be 2 mana Marauder? Well, you could draw something like a Echo or an Ertai Resurrected or something else that you want to play on that turn. So getting this as cheap as possible, even in the late game, is still really important. Souls of the Lost and the Somnophage both being pretty aggressive when you curve out properly. Vermin on 1 is huge, and then Souls of the Lost, and then all of a sudden, I mean, how early was that? It was, we actually went in that last game, Vermin into the mill on the Cruel Somnophage Adventure. Turn 3, it was a tapped land with the Souls of the Lost being like a 6-7 at that point. We had an option to actually pop the Vermin, which actually might have been a little bit better to take care of their 2-1, but instead I went for the discard. Probably not the best decision there, but at least we didn't get punished for the suboptimal play. Yeah, just taking care of their Paw Patch Recruit would have been much better. So really showcasing the power level of the Vermin when it comes time. The -1/-1 really coming in handy, popping bats and other important creatures when it comes time to sacrifice this. It's just kind of beautiful. It's the ideal 1-drop for this deck list, for sure. Didn't get a chance to see the No One Left Behind. I think it's still worth the one of Ertai Resurrected. Still think it's worth it. Definitely worth the one of Invasion. I would actually consider more of these potentially. 2 to 3 might be cool, but again, it's going to come down to, are you seeing those hyper-aggressive deck lists? Because if you are, and you play this on 3 against Mono Red, you're probably just going to die next turn. So, like, honestly, that's just how it's been. Yeah, I like the one of, but there's something to be said that it's actually pretty darn good, because you want to self-mill in here. The opponent discarding and you drawing a card is actually really huge too. So, and then it's not going to be unheard of where it's actually really worth flipping this, especially when we have all these ETB abilities like Mentor and the Chupacabra Echo, and ETB abilities on like the Hollow Marauder too. So didn't get to see the Ancient One do anything today. Is it worthwhile in here? If you have the one of, sure. If you don't, it's not worth it, right? It's a mythic, rare wild card. It's very specific for these very specific Dimir style deck lists, right? And sometimes like Sultai deck lists too. But it has to be like a graveyard deck that actually puts permanent cards into the grave. So being at mythic, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just go up more removal and you'll be happy, right? So that being said too, if you do go up more removal, that's going to actually be less creature cards, which means less permanent cards. And so less permanents for the souls, less creatures for the Somnophage, less creatures for the Marauder. So maybe you could go up like another 2-drop creature. What would that be? I have no idea, honestly. You guys let me know in the comments. Maybe there was something in the honorable mentions that we could consider or something. Yeah, either way, let me know. What would you add or take out? Let me know in the comments. And guys, if you made it this far into the video, for real, y'all are champions. I actually don't have too much to say here at the end, because I kind of said it all when I went over the deck list. And then also those matches really showcased exactly what the deck list is trying to do. Really like the double of Liliana here too. I don't think I'd go up any. I definitely wouldn't go down any either. Just a very valuable planeswalker, especially in a strategy like this as well. The mana base, yeah. The mana base felt fine. The second game though, more dual lands really could have helped. Could we consider dropping a couple Fabled Passage, going up a couple Darkslick Shores? Yeah, maybe. I could see that. Especially if you don't have all 4 Fabled Passage. Just remember, Fabled Passage is a great way to put more permanents into the grave early on. And honestly, thinning the deck list in a deck list like this could be really good too. 24 mana felt about right. I wouldn't go up any, wouldn't go down any. Also guys, this is an old version of Fabled Passage. I've been trying to bring this up as much as I can remember. But when I put this down in the description, again, if I remember, I'll trade this to the newest version of Fabled Passage, but this is a reprint. Please keep your eye on that. Rare reprints, right? Like, I don't have any. I didn't pull any from my packs or any from Bloomburrow, right? So I only have the older version of Fabled Passage, and I really don't want to craft the new version. So I've been trying to bring that up just in case. Always keep an eye on your rare reprints because you don't want to accidentally craft them. Either way, I'll try to remember to trade this to the newest one, which was Bloomburrow. Yeah. Okay, guys, enough rambling, huh? You made it this far into the video. Y'all are champions. And I will see you in the next video.